Dogman crashed our family vacation. Dear Scary Stories NYC. Our family, back in 1993 when this all happened, consisted of me and my two then teenage daughters, who we can call Cagney and Lacey for the sake of this story. We had lost their mother when the twins were 13 in 1988, and I had become a bit overprotective of them. When this Dogman incident took place, we were recovering as a family from our worst fight ever. I had not been coping well with the idea of my girls getting serious boyfriends. I made up reasons to hate the boys, which were unfair, and it led to a big blowout. Picking up the pieces afterward, we decided to take a trip out to the lake as a family and to invite the boyfriends along so I could get to know them better. I drove us all out to North Higgins Lake and the state park on the north edge of the lake, where we had a fun afternoon. We had brought sandwiches with us, far more than we could eat. I remember the picnic area was right next to a very small beach with crystal clear water. I remember us sitting together along the water, barefoot, with our feet getting splashed each time the waves of the tide came back in. We were resting after having eaten, gathering up the strength to walk back to the car and head on home. I had my arms around my girls, who sat to either side of me. They, in turn, had their arms around me and their boyfriends. It was a peaceful scene at the end of a successful day, but that peace ended suddenly when, out of nowhere, a huge, upright walking dog plopped himself down to my far right, sitting butt down like a human being, his wolfen legs dangling off into the water. I don't think anyone else noticed him at that point, but when he leaned over and put his arm affectionately around the back of Lacey and her boyfriend both, we all froze up. And we shut up, too. This was not the kind of situation you plan ahead for as a parent. Perhaps it should be, but it just isn't. I think the creature walked out of the brush and onto the beach, the only other option being that it walked toward us through the area with those picnic tables. I looked behind us, and all the people who had once been there were gone. It was getting later in the afternoon, so maybe the park was closing soon? Or maybe those people had just run off when they saw this big humanoid dog walking on through. If that was what happened, I hope that someone had the courage to risk being mocked and reported this Dogman to some park ranger or another. I hoped that somebody already knew about this. I prayed internally that help was on the way, but I knew in my heart of hearts that we were probably on our own, and we better be resourceful if we wanted to avoid having something terrible ruin our day and maybe our lives. Now, at the time, none of us had any idea what was happening, but in the years since then, the twins have become convinced that this all had something to do with some strange puppies that they had played with during our trip to Sleeping Bear Dunes when they were children and their mother was still with us. Sleeping Bear Dunes isn't all that far away from North Higgins Lake. It's over on the western edge of the state by the shore of Lake Michigan. There were two puppies that day who seemed to have no parents or guardians, either canine or human, and they spent the day playing with my girls as though they already knew each other. Cagney and Lacey were both petitioning me to allow them to take the strange puppies home, when we noticed that they were no longer around. They had run off somewhere, so it became a moot point about whether we would keep them or not. If my daughter's theory is correct, and those were actually baby dog men, how lucky are we that they ran away when they did? How bad an ending might this story have if we had really brought them back to suburbia with us? One of the reasons I was so concerned about the idea of bringing the pups back with us was the way they looked like wild animals. I wasn't sure if they were wolves or coyotes or just very energetic domesticated mongrels, as I'm far from being an expert on wildlife. Although I don't recall either of them walking bipedally, they were very young. Their fur was a dark gray, almost black, same as the large beast who crashed our life at the beach that day. So it's not impossible that my daughters might be correct that the lakeside Dogman was merely an adult version of one of those pups from that earlier day. It might explain the apparent friendliness of the dog-like man-thing. At least it might if the Dogman had remained friendly. But things played out in a more complicated manner than that. So, to put his arm around Lacey, the Dogman had to reach his arm all the way around her boyfriend. Now, the Dogman's arm was plenty long enough to do the job, but the boyfriend had himself a face full of dog fur, and he had the audacity to make some kind of unhappy noise and movement to express that unhappiness over the situation. Well, the big Dogman didn't like the way the boyfriend squirmed. He began to growl, and that boyfriend froze in fear. Now, animal growls are generally not very loud, but this particular one seemed like the second cousin of a scream. I wouldn't have thought there was a beast who could growl that loud, but there was, and it was sitting down the beach from me, its left hand or claw inches away from me, locked around my daughter Lacey's side. Cagney's boyfriend softly suggested we pass the rest of our picnic lunch down to the Dogman, an idea which Cagney objected to strongly. She said those leftovers were going to be lunch tomorrow, and if he wanted to give them away to some kind of stray dog, then he could go out and buy us lunch for tomorrow with his own money, because she had already spent all her money buying cold cuts to make today's food, and on and on and on. That Dogman seemed to be unfamiliar with nagging. In fact, I'd go so far as to say that he was a nagging virgin. The creature stood up to its full height, which was taller than tall is legally allowed to be, and he walked the 2 steps it took someone as big as he was to walk over to Cagney. He stared at her with his head tilted in confusion, as though he'd never seen or heard anything like her before. Cagney was fully on her high horse, lecturing and hectoring in an alarmist manner, when suddenly she glanced up, and she saw the upright walking canine staring back down at her. I don't think Cagney really understood until that moment that we were not dealing with an ordinary stray dog, that dusk darkening into evening. But once she looked up, and a little further up, and she saw that massive, broad-shouldered, fur-covered man with a dog's head in place of his own, my daughter Cagney shut right up, and she tossed the remaining picnic food on the sand in the direction of the Dogman. Well, I got to see that Dogman go down on all fours and eat the lunch Cagney had prepared, and I will say this: they really do look human when they stand up, and canine when they go back down. I've never seen anything like it. They shouldn't be able to appear in both forms like that. And I saw nothing change or alter as he fell down to all fours. It wasn't like Transformers when he visibly changed. It's just that when he was standing up on his hind legs, he looked natural that way. And when he dropped down to all fours, he looked natural that way too. I can't explain it. I'm not a zoologist or biologist. I'm just a dad who needed to get his daughters out of that situation. Which is what I did, basically. We marched out of there quickly and quietly, while the Dogman scarfed down what would have been our lunch the next day. Sometimes when I tell this story, people laugh in disbelief. Other times people express the notion that I remained more cool-headed than they would have in the same situation. And then there's a third group that ask why I didn't bring the Dogman home. I tell you, if I were a rich man, I think I might have. I mean, if I were rich, I could have gotten on my cell phone and called in some kind of team of experts to tranquilize the beast and bring him in. In real life, though, I didn't actually own a cell phone until later in the 90s. My job didn't call for it at the time, and in those days it was still something really only the wealthier had for the most part. That was about to change, but it was still that way. Even if I had wanted to bring that Dogman home, I don't think I realistically had the resources to do so within my means. The other thing you have to take into account was the surprise attack aspect of the creature's appearance. It's not like we saw it from a distance and invited the Dogman to come over. It came up from behind us and wrapped its clawed hand around my daughter's exposed and vulnerable side. All it had to do was draw its arm backwards sharply, and parts of her insides wouldn't have been inside any longer. Even if it was trying to be affectionate, it was something larger than any man who ever lived trying to be affectionate. We didn't even know what was happening to us until it was already happening. That's scary in and of itself, don't you think? It was to me on that day. I remember when I was in my 20s with my then girlfriend, and we were waiting for a bus together. From behind, someone put their hands over my eyes and said, "Guess who?" Now, my girlfriend thought we were being mugged, but it turned out to be an old friend of mine from school. Even after we both apologized to her for the scare, my girlfriend was still really shaken up, and she went home instead of where we were gonna go together. In that same way, my daughters and I were shaken up by the sudden, unannounced, and overly friendly appearance of the Dogman on that night. Yes, we do realize now that we were lucky to have had the experience, but you'll have to forgive us if we agree that the luckiest part of it was that we got away unharmed. No matter if his intentions may have actually been friendly, we would have appreciated some advance warning before. Dogman crashed our family vacation. No matter what you do or say, our executive producer is Deborah A. Please join us in thanking Deborah Ariola for making this episode possible. In exchange for her kind contributions which help keep us on the air, we share with her our weekly, secret, uncensored Dogman stories, each of them far too wild to ever tell on this channel. For instance, tonight's new secret story is entitled Dogman Brained Me, with my own car bumper. YouTube would never allow that story on this channel. That's why we can only share it with our channel members and PayPal Club members on our secret channel. Plus, if you join at our $3 a month level or above, you gain access to our over 24 hours of archived, secret, uncensored Dogman stories far too wild to ever tell here. Now it's time for international TV spokesmongrel Henry Lee Dogman to fill in the rest of the deets. Hank? Thanks for watching till the end. If you liked what you saw, please consider clicking like on the video or sharing it with your friends and family that you think might also be interested. If you would like to see more of our work, please consider subscribing and hitting that bell icon next to the subscribe button so that YouTube will alert you when we put out a new video. To become a channel member and gain access to our special perks, you can click that join link under each of our videos. Another option is to join our PayPal subscribers club at peterbernard.com. You can join for as little as 99 cents on YouTube or $1.50 at peterbernard.com, and that gains you access to our weekly secret uncensored episodes. If you'd like to see our 21 hours of archives of uncensored Dogman stories, then please join at the $3 level or above. To get to watch our shows in advance of the public, please join at our $10 level. That gets you all the perks. If you join our channel memberships, you need to check our community page here on YouTube in order to get the links to the secret videos and other perks. If you're in the PayPal subscribers club, Peter will email you all the news and links himself. Once joining the PayPal club, which is Peter's homemade club, please give him a chance to see that you've joined and to compose you a personal welcome email, as none of that is automated. But whichever you join, we'll name you an executive producer for the next available episode. Do you have a scary experience that you'd like to share with us? You can email us at scarystoriesnyc@gmail.com or call our Scary Stories voicemail hotline at 804-LA-SCARY. That's 804-537-2279. It's a Google voicemail box, so that means it keeps cutting off after every 3 minutes. If your story is longer than that, please keep calling back and we can piece it together on our end. Good night, and have a scary tomorrow.
Come back for more scary stories.